Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Taking Highground Live. We talk everything Fortnite, especially comics and card collectibles. We have a special guest here tonight. A lot of news and some great topics to cover. Can't wait for this interview. It's a long time coming. My name is Rob. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
What's up? I'm Dylan, and we've got a special guest here with us today.
Hi,
Yes,
my name is Matt. I'm also known as Bog.
yes. AKA BoG is finally in the building, man. Excited
Just,
about this.
just before we get started, he has his own YouTube channel too, which I believe
Yes.
is akaBoG, which is akaBoG, correct?
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
So we can throw that up later in the banner. What's going on, Dill, David, Farting Fat Kid, Husky, Richard, Inky Bro, Brian, Free Comics, Black Ash.
The
One
squad
of
is
the best.
here. The squad is here.
All right.
This is a big episode we've
Yeah,
been trying to get out for a while now.
for a while. Yes,
So I'm happy that we're doing it live, and it couldn't be on a better day
man.
or a more sad day, to be
Right.
honest.
Yeah.
Depending on how you look at it, some mixed results from that.
I'm sure that everyone's gonna have their tin hat theories going on, But
Yeah.
what's up? What's up, Mitchell? What's going on? No.
That's
So when I was at work today, and Rob said, "Yo," he sent me the message. So we'll just jump right into it. We have a lot we want to talk about.
yes.
But I know the first thing on everybody's mind is Donald Mustard.
Yeah.
So before akaBoG takes over and tells us what he's got for us, I'd
Mm-hmm.
love for us to start talking about Donald Mustard. So if you stick around, I'm sure akaBoG is going to drop a lot of knowledge
Yes.
about comics in general and the Fortnite comics. You may be able to get a little hints of what he thinks you should be picking up. Nothing that we say in this episode is investment advice. Let's get that out the
100%.
way now. Um, so without further ado, if you guys did not know, Donald Mustard is officially retiring from his role as
Mhm.
Chief Creative Officer, and that's happening this month. Now, my first question to you guys is: does that mean he's leaving Epic Games altogether? Because he specifically said, "I'm leaving my role as Chief Creative Officer." He did
Mhm.
not say, "I'm leaving Epic Games."
Yeah.
I'll open up the floor and see what you guys think.
Go ahead, AK.
I'm, I was not expecting this news at all today, and it was definitely a big surprise, especially considering how fast of a transition it's going to be. It sounds like it's happening pretty quick, but the post itself really did seem like positive, like he's maybe just ready to do something else or maybe to move on. But man, it's I haven't even really had time to think about it too much today because I've been busy getting ready for the show.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of crazy. So we looked this up. He's only 47 years old. So his wording of retiring is really strange to me.
Hmm.
It's like normally when I hear retirement, it's like I'm done working,
Yeah,
right? I get he's been with them for 25 years. Even though Fortnite is only roughly 5 to 6 years old, he's been with Epic Games for a very long time.
yeah.
So maybe that's why he chose the word retiring. But I don't know. Now, the first thing that came to mind to me was like, why would he leave? This game is his biggest success. It's only been out 5 to 6 years. He was so heavily invested in the storyline. And it was just a couple months ago that he talked about, oh, yes, we know we can do a movie. If we wanted to do a movie, it would happen like this. And then he says, I'm just too busy to do that right now. I'm working on so many other things on Fortnite.
Hmm.
So that did not give me the impression that he was prepared to leave.
Right.
So
Well,
I think something happened. I don't know.
honestly, the way that I read it, um, he didn't allude to having other things he wanted to work on. He didn't comment on going somewhere else. He specifically said retiring, which is a loaded word. And he mentioned that he was going to be spending time playing the game and spending time with his family. And the truth is, for me, man, I really just hope it's not a health issue.
Hmm.
Something unexpected there would be a major concern. And maybe, who knows what's going on, but maybe he's also just ready to take some time with the family. Let's hope it's something like that.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
sure he's got enough money put away that he could retire if he just wanted to.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems that Dylan brought it up before too. Like Warfighter is saying, he legit could just be ready to spend time with family, and that's never a bad thing. Also, though, to Dylan's point earlier, he also said this with something else. akaBoG, you might remember this as well. Remember when people were asking about him not doing comic book covers as much? And his answer to that was he just doesn't have enough time. He doesn't have enough time. So maybe he could be pushing towards the side of focusing on the comics with Crystal Gage. That could be a case like the physical aspect of it. Or he could be just riding off into the sunset. I do think a window is open there, but maybe we're just optimistic because everything else has been taken away from us. But I guess we'll see what happens.
So
Well, one of my
go ahead.
first thoughts when you guys sent me that earlier today was maybe he's gonna try and do more comic stuff because my brain did go there.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that would be amazing, but the fact that he's stepping away from the creative director, who
yeah.
would be the one in charge, I feel
True.
like if he was going to be working on the game at all, it would be more like I'm stepping down from this position, not retiring and then thanking everybody. Like it would
Hmm.
be more passive role and more specific.
Yeah.
Um, Also, so I know you guys noticed, but he has stopped posting sneak peeks about a year ago,
Hmm.
right? He was really almost always posting secrets, talking about Midas. Like he'd make little Instagram videos saying, Midas isn't gone yet. Just you wait, guys," and stuff like that. And then right around when like the what's that? I always forget her name. The lady with the silver and the tree.
Oh, Harold.
Yeah, the Herald. So when that came out, and then the storyline just fell apart, right? So she never got a conclusion. It was some weird skit at the end of the season where she became huge, covered in stuff, and they shot at her, and then it was over.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. Real quick before I get to him, so Brian says maybe Epic wants a movie and he doesn't want a movie. I don't think that's the case. I think that Donald Mustard is huge about the storyline and about the comics and all that kind of stuff and pushing the story. I think that maybe it's different. I think maybe this is just hypothetical that Tim Sweeney and Epic Games is more focused on the tech and more focused on the virtual reality work, not virtual, what do they call it, the metaverse. I
Metaverse.
think they're
Yeah.
more focused on that and pushing people to create their own games, where Donald Mustard was more focused on like a Pixar type company where he could build the story and the characters and the history. And maybe he didn't have enough time for that. Maybe there's a rift. I don't know. That's what it seems like to me. I
Yeah.
think that Donald Mustard is more to that creative side with movies, comics, and stuff than Tim Sweeney. So that's why I don't agree with what Brian was thinking here.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, there you go. Hmm.
I mean, I personally am a little bullish on the metaverse there. So
No,
Yeah.
and the metaverse is great. Like Epic Games knows what they're doing. They are leading the front. No one can really compete with them with the metaverse. But it's sad for us collectors and people who love the lore because I honestly think that with how it was built,
Hmm.
how the 0 point is the foundation of not only Fortnite characters but Marvel characters. Like
Hmm.
it was the first reality for all Marvel characters, and they have so many different backstories that they can use that they could really be the next Marvel for the next generation.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they lose that, that would be really sad to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'll add to something that they might possibly be thinking. It's not something that I would like them to think, but maybe their effect of being the next Marvel character wise, whether it's you look at them as superheroes or villains, but character wise, is possibly with them playing with them through the metaverse. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe that's their strong suit, which I don't think any of us agree with. I think it's not ors and you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think if they drop the ball on this, uh it won't affect the trajectory of the game, but it would take a big gap out of what could have been. And I don't see that happening. So I'm interested to see what happens over like the next 3 months, if any announcements of a new direction. Once again, the thing that we have to really worry about is is the next person up going to treat the characters that have already been established the same way?
The
And
question
that's
is, who is up next,
who
right?
is up next.
Because it
Yeah.
takes a special person to lead a creative position like that.
Yeah.
So like I don't Donald Mustard had it. He's pretty much the creator of Fortnite. He didn't come up with the original game because I read the Game Informer. I think it was somebody else.
Yeah.
But then he got a hold of it and he made it his own and he changed it. So he's literally the creator of Fortnite.
Yeah.
He's like that's what people call him. And
Mhm.
so the next person that comes up is not going to be just some creative guy. It has to be someone who knows how to build such an enormous like storyline like this. It's going to be a very tough shoes to fill. I don't know
So
who. I don't know who.
So I'm gonna. It's football season, so I'll throw a football analogy in here real quick. I it feels to me something like when an offensive coordinator steps down or they get fired or whatever the case may be, they take another job. You kind of have that successor that kind of mimics what they were, but they have their own spin on it as well. I think that's the most that we can hope for. We can hope that he had somebody that was right by his side that understands the nucleus that he built, but also maybe has a positive direction that it can go, maybe where he was, falling, I guess. I'm not saying Donald Mustard dropped the ball in certain areas, but it has been stagnant. We don't know the whole story of why it's been stagnant. Obviously, this tells us a lot, but hopefully it was somebody close by, very close to him that kind of can smoothly transition into that role.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the story, like the way it was building up, was so great, and they did
Mhm.
everything, and then it fell apart. And about a year later, Donald Mustard's leaving with this like weird like no reasoning that it
Yeah.
has to be related in some way. So I don't know if it was health. I don't know if he got too busy, got pulled different directions. I don't know what it is. Dill
Yeah.
is hilarious. He said it doesn't matter as long as the new CCO likes
There you
trading
go.
cards.
Yep.
Um, JL. So we lost Donald Mustard, the creator of Fortnite, is leaving the company at the end of the month. He's the one who pushed for comics. He's a big comic guy. He's the one who did all the covers. Like this was drawn by Donald Mustard. This was drawn by Donald Mustard. This was drawn by Donald Mustard. This one too. That's but a
Mhm.
few that I was able to grab before the show. So he's the one who's been pushing this. So with him gone, I'm gonna open it up to akaBoG. What do you think about the materials that he's worked on? So not just because he has his hands in the storyline completely, but he also drew some covers on some of the comics. So I'm curious, do you think that with him being gone from Epic Games, does that make those comic covers even more interesting? What do you think?
I don't know. It's so fresh to really even to like have no idea what the fallout on this is going to be. It's really hard to say. I for one really hope we get more covers. I love his style. It's I think
Mhm.
it like is awesome. It fits the series. The book's really nice. Um, and it would definitely be a bummer to see another comic series come out without his art. Now
Mhm.
that said, if we do have another series coming out sometime soon, which has been a little bit rumored, which we'll get into, um, the timing of that, supposedly there were rumblings that it was maybe originally supposed to happen earlier this year and maybe got
Mhm.
delayed. And if that's the case, maybe that one will still have some of his art.
Mhm.
Um, so it's I don't know. I personally don't like change, so it's hard to be excited to see him move
Yeah.
on. But two at the same time, maybe we will see them like kind of coalesce and bring it together. It's difficult though because usually you do not see good things come out when you see big creative changes.
Mhm.
So we'll have to wait and see.
So I'm looking. I've been looking at the like this is the first thing we found out about this, but I've been looking at the careers, trying to see are they going to put it there. I doubt it. I'm sure that they've been grooming, or just like for such a high position, like the
Mhm.
CEO, they don't just put out like a job thing for it. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping they have someone in mind. But Free Comics here says something interesting.
Mhm.
Talking about like maybe there was creative differences because now it's gotten so big, and now like I said about the metaverse, and now you also have investors because half of it's owned by Tennyson, you
Mhm.
know. So and then Warfighter said that there's maybe some push to change the story to make it fit some famous actors like Brie Larson and stuff like that. That's possible too if they're
I
trying
agree.
because
Yeah.
they've been big at bringing in famous IP and characters into the game, and maybe Don Mustard wasn't as a fan of that, and maybe he had to change his story to make that happen.
Yeah.
That's possible.
So and I know y'all both will agree with this too. We can tell that Donald Mustard's a comic purist, right? Um, I agree with Warfighter here. I was kind of thinking the same thing, and I know me and Dylan talked about this a couple times. That switch with the singularity story and paradigm was very weird, like very weird. It was one of them things that's like you got to kind of grasp for straws to explain what that was. We kind of, it worked, to an extent. Y'all know that I was like all the way up here for paradigm, and then I kind of came to the middle. I'm not as big of a fan as paradigm as I was, but I think she's still a major character. But once again, we're in limbo now at this point. We don't know if she's going to be the same. We don't know anything really. Um,
Well, it's interesting that that
yeah,
happened too because like specifically like tying these characters to these actors. Um, we saw The Rock had made a move with Black Adam to
mhm.
take over and become the new
Yeah,
power in the DC Universe studios, and that backfired, and his star took some damage from that.
hmm,
And Brie Larson, has taken flack for her portrayal with Captain Marvel in particular, and some
hmm,
other issues, and so I can definitely see that like kind of
yeah,
disrupting things. I would say that the other thing, when you tie your original IP to some of these celebrities, it can get really complicated depending on what the contracts are. It might be very
yeah,
difficult to bring them back in the future for another season.
hmm,
But I would also counter that with the fact that they've got them set up where they could always have a mask, they could always have the mask change their voice. There's a lot of things that they could do to work around it. So I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. It's very interesting because I think the confusing part about that, and I'm kind of bouncing off what you just said, was the community wanted the characters to come up front. They wanted the let's just go with the Midases, the Bright Bombers. They wanted them to get true roles. They wanted them to get step into that, uh, and to go to the extent of animating Brie Larson instead of her putting those characters in the forefront, the ones that made Fortnite what it was always weird to me. But I'm always optimistic. You know what I mean? yeah, I'm a creative to the bone, like almost to a fault. So I'm always at the point where I'm like, okay, I let me see the 8 story steps. Let me see how this comes full circle. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
one of those things where I always give it the grace period to kind of see how they pull it together. Um,
The
I
example I always use is I'm a big Star Trek guy, but I never read any of the Star Trek books or anything because they were never canon. They always had to end with all the characters reset to the same exact space, no consequences, no follow up. And for me, that was unappealing. And that's one of the reasons I was a big fan of the Star Wars expanded universe because for a long time there, Lucas kept everything together and had
yeah.
different layers of, canon and kind of knew what was going on. And it's a little bit with Fortnite. It feels like there's been several times where the story has fluxed or changed, and they have a lot of flexibility. But I don't want them to lose that opportunity. They recently is a new comic book series coming out called Plot Holes
Hmm.
by Sean Gordon Murphy, who's kind of well known for doing a series called the White Knight. Um,
Okay.
and it's a creator-owned series, but it takes characters from different fiction that was destroyed and they were rescued, and now they go into other fiction that's at risk of being destroyed to try and save it and preserve it.
Mm,
And so it's pulling characters from different realities and different fictional and it's like, yo, that's Fortnite. Like, it's this idea is not you. It's people are ready to understand the idea. You don't have to get too complicated with it. And I almost feel like Fortnite's a little hesitant to just like dive into it. They kind
hmm.
of soft reset their stories every couple of seasons, or they'll forget about this. And it would be nice if they were able to kind of bring everything together in like a better cohesive story whole for me. I would definitely appreciate that.
Which is strange because Donald Mustard has been so good at thinking ahead. We've talked about this. He thinks 2, 3 years ahead. And these issues haven't come up until like the Brie Larson thing, right? And
Hmm.
like before that, it was like the fact that the seven came together since like what season, Rob, season 3, season 4,
That's season 3. Yeah,
season
season
three,
three.
right?
Yep.
I mean, think
Hmm.
about that. That's how long that's been. They were cohesive all the way
Hmm.
through. Like
Hmm.
that wasn't by chance. Donald Mustard did that, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that we lost that along the way, I don't think that him leaving is a good sign that it's going to get fixed. I
Yeah.
think that he was doing what you were talking about because
Hmm.
if you think about Fortnite, 99% of the population do not understand the story, and
Hmm.
it's amazing because all these movies that are coming out right now are about different dimensions or different realities, right? You got
Hmm.
Spider-Man, you have all of them, right? None of them are bringing them all together, but Fortnite does, right? They
Hmm.
have that opportunity. They're literally doing it. So they're kind of fumbling the bag by messing that up.
Yeah.
So
It's
I'm going to
interesting.
throw it out there real quick. It's kind of a
Go ahead.
little soft on there, but um, I started collecting NFTs a while back, specifically because Marvel started releasing comic books as NFTs, and I was like, oh well, I'll never own a Spider-Man, or Amazing Fantasy 15, but I can get the NFT and this, that, and the other. And through that, it's been really interesting watching the NFT people and their concept of what a metaverse should be,
Yeah.
and like how disconnected a lot of the current NFT projects and markets are from actually making that a reality. Um, when they talk about metaverse, all these other NFT collectors, they have an idea in their head about gamification. And I
Yeah.
tried to explain to them, like, hey, you guys should pay attention to what Epic's doing because they have been on record saying they're developing, their metaverse and they have these plans and everything. And they already have this IP. They already have it gamified, and it's going to be interesting at some point to see those spaces kind of coalesce. But the truth is, I would much rather have more comic books with better story.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think it's one of the things we're a little panicky because it's unsure what's happening here. But I'm going to try and be positive and hopeful and
Yeah,
hope everything keeps chugging along.
for
I,
sure.
I I agree with what Bob says here that like it does feel like they were running things that they didn't finish, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Increasingly so, right? And
Yeah.
so with this season we have a heist, right? And if we don't get any kind of, like, I feel like lately we haven't gotten a conclusion to anything.
Anything.
They just
Nothing.
stopped giving conclusions.
Yeah.
So
And
even the comics.
yeah.
So, like, yes, we saw Geno. He got deteriorated, and then he was like, "This isn't over" on the last page or whatever. But in game, we didn't get anything.
Yeah.
We got
So
nothing in game, right? And no one left. We didn't like pick up with everyone gone. Like the island didn't reset with the comics. Like what happened? All we got was Paradigm bringing everything together some weird way.
yeah. So the weird part about it is that when it comes to storytelling, you want to open a curiosity loop, right? You want to open a curiosity loop, but the thing is, you have to close it. If you open a curiosity where your fan base is interested in what's going on, it has to end up being closed. And to your point, nothing's ever been closed. It's like the interest peaks and then it's just nothing there. And it's crazy that we're at this point with so much great storyline. And then Richard, just one thing. The Visitor was released in season 4, which showed who the 7 was, but the cutscene from 3 to 4 would make it the first, understanding of the 7 be season 3.
Also, when did AIM come?
Aim was season 5,
6.
maybe 5 or 6. It might have been 6.
Okay. I agree here with Bob too. It's like I kind of agree. The whole thing with the 0 point is that anybody can come. Geno, a vampire, all
Hmm.
these powerful people are drawn to the 0 point because it's the most
Yeah,
powerful matter ever known. Right?
yeah.
It literally controls all of the multiverses.
Hmm.
Right? That's why Doctor Doom is interested in it. That's why all these people are interested in it. So that part makes sense. The part that doesn't make sense is how they haven't finished, like, at least telling those stories. They just drop them
Mm.
off, which is decent.
So
I feel like
go ahead,
those
Ike.
stories are like in another realm and they throw us into the new seasons, and it's like it is not satisfactory getting that conclusion. Um, but if you don't mind me just throwing it out there, like I said, I had heard rumblings that we were supposed to get something this summer,
Yeah,
Yep.
and the current rumbling I'm hearing from my buddy Justin on Twitter is that there is supposed to be a new Marvel X Fortnite comic series called Order Restored
hmm,
dropping in January.
yeah,
And if that's accurate, in theory, we'll see, depending on how they do the solicits for Fortnite, in theory, we'd start seeing something maybe in like October, November. If they do the normal Fortnite thing where they give you no time to order and just kind of spring it on everybody, it might be as late as December. But
yeah,
you know, the only at this point, I'm just hoping we get some more comics, and maybe that'll help tie something together. Maybe we'll get kind of a closed loop with like a trilogy of series from Marvel.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
if you look here, so this is what Matt sent us, and yeah, so it was supposed to come out. I remember it was supposed to come out this summer.
hmm,
Then it got pushed back to like January, but then we just got his tweet today, right? And it's September 8th, and he said that he's finishing his position this month, which is about
yeah,
2 weeks, guys. So if he's just now announcing this, he could have announced this yesterday to Epic Games.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
mm,
It's not like, I mean, he is literally still has a whole month left almost.
yeah,
So he could have just given them the notice. We don't know. So this comic could, if Donald Marshall's not there, it could get pushed or
yeah.
canceled. I know akaBoG thinks that's not likely because of how much money they made per issue.
Hmm.
Fingers
I don't know how
crossed.
much of that, but in comparison to, I don't know what their cut was with like production fees and everything, but with how much money they make off of, like, they make billions off of Fortnite.
It's
Hmm.
a
I
lot
bet
of money
you.
for the it's a lot of money for Marvel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Marvel, but here's the problem though. Panini wanted to keep doing the cards.
hmm,
There's a lot of money for Panini too,
yeah,
right? They sold out their stuff. You know what I mean? Like Target got them all. You know, they sold out of the stores. So Panini wanted to keep doing it. Epic Games said no. So
yeah.
just because it's a lot of money to Marvel, it's a lot of money to Panini, doesn't mean that Epic Games picks it up.
Fair enough.
Kind of
Yep.
interesting. I hope I'm wrong. I want a comic so bad,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. It's just so much. I know people are wondering like, what do you? So I'll go back to the question about the like, comic covers. Are there any Donald Mustard covers
Yeah.
that you find, akaBoG, that you find are like must-haves in a collection?
For the mustard variants, I think kind of some of the standouts in particular are the Foundation Premium,
Mhm.
since that was a limited one. Um, the One of my favorites is his Wolverine cover that he did for Zero War.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one is just spectacular. I love that cover, the colors, and just the layout and everything. That's
It's a
awesome.
sick cover. I wish it was a Fortnite character
I
Mhm.
think that one
because
ended up, they switched it to one of the ratios at the last minute too. And so I think that one is like a 1 in 15, maybe
Mhm.
something like a run to 10, something like that, or 1 to 25. I don't know, but I feel like there's fewer of those out there than a lot of the other Marvel Donald. And I say, I think, is that the only Donald Mustard he did for that series?
no,
Yes.
he did this one.
He did do that one. Yeah, he did the first one, but that one was an open order. So
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely
But
quite a
this one
few
was
more of
kind of
those.
hard to find, if I remember correctly. Like it wasn't popping up as much
Yeah.
when I was looking for these. And also condition wise, like I know nothing about grading comics, guys, but like the corners, like you can see the white there, right? In the top
Mhm.
Mhm.
corner. Like all of them were damaged like that I kept getting, so I kept buying them trying to find a good one. I
I'll
mean, it
tell
has
you,
the Durburger on there, but
that corner, those are, depending on the corner and how bad it is, that can often get overlooked and just ignored on a grade
Mhm.
because
yeah, I've
that
read
the
that.
simple act of like folding paper
Yeah.
causes that break. Yeah, and so it's usually considered a manufacturing issue.
Yeah.
So for
So,
people who collect cards, sorry Rob, real
mhm.
quick, I don't mean to cut you off. But people who collect cards, like it has to be perfect. But for
Yeah.
comics, they base it off of manufacturing. I do know that.
Yeah.
So it's how it came from the actual manufacturer, which is weird for us
But
card collectors.
well,
Yeah.
it's why you see the 9.8, and that's why everyone with comics are usually going for 9.8s because the fact is you barely ever see 9.9s or 10s. And most of the 9.9s have been popping up over the last couple of years because of these metal covers that they're
Mhm.
grading. And it's like, well, it's a metal cover. It's, it better be perfect, I guess. And so you do occasionally see an actual 9.9
Yeah.
that pops up here and there. And those design will demand ridiculous prices even for just a nothing book because it's so rare.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, generally speaking, with comics, you can get away with a lot on a 9.8 if the grader's having a good day.
Dang. That's good to know. That's good to know because me and Dylan was worried about that Donald Mustard Renegade Raider and Batman cover. So hopefully uh
Yeah,
we can
I'll
pull a
see the one
9.8
because I
on
have that
that.
one out here too. Like
Yeah.
I kept a lot of mine get like damaged like that.
Yeah.
They also get like the spine ticks and stuff.
The
I don't know. I was
spontics. Yeah.
looking closely at the corners just because I was worried. But like this is one of my favorite ones. And
Well, I'll mention
main
this real quick.
yeah.
A lot of people will leave the books in the poly bag and then put the poly
Uh-huh.
bag in a comic cover. And generally speaking, that's actually want to remove it from the poly bag
Mhm.
because if you leave it in there, it will get very commonly the poly bag crease.
Yep, I
And
said
that
that.
is 100% something that graders will ding you on because they're looking for it.
Mhm.
And it's something that's actually really easy to press out with like a good like comic presser.
Yeah.
So it's not usually a big deal, but it's not a bad idea to pull them out of the poly bags. And what I do is I pull them out of the poly bag from the bag and board, and I'm a dork. I put the poly bag in the back of the bag and board, so I still have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So so for those who don't know what he's talking about, I'm one of those like horrible people who doesn't do what he's supposed to do. So here's one of these comics that I like a lot. And it's a not a good one though. Don't buy this one.
I
We'll
say
get
we'll
into
talk
that.
about that one. Hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see if we get there. Yeah.
So I need to take it out of the bag. This is what he's talking about. The reason why these come in the bag is because they have codes inside. And so what he's saying is there's a slip here and it'll leave an indent, right?
Yeah,
Over time.
because you see that it's like got the overlapping plastic, and what'll happen is when it's in a box being compressed by like a couple hundred comics in there over time, it will indent that little ridge into the back of the comic, and that is something that graders definitely look for.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna open this one right now. I've done this for a lot of these, but I have so many Fortnite comics that a lot of them are still in the bags. Like a
Mm,
lot of them. I did take all of my. So everybody knows, like, I'm big on this one.
yeah.
Um, so I took all of these out because I didn't want these messed up. But
Yeah.
that is
It's
a
it's
good
such
thing.
an awesome cover. I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah. That once Dylan get that open, we're gonna transition into the interview. AKA Bog got some heat to give y'all. I think y'all gonna enjoy it.
Y'all can go ahead and get started.
And so yeah, we I would say, well, there's definitely several different like, comic things that we were talking about, but
Yeah.
we kind of already talked a little bit about what's coming down the pipeline potentially later this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a video that is actually going to go into like all the first cover appearances and everything through the series. I'm launching that later this week. But I think specifically we kind of talking about some of the rare covers and
Yeah.
uh, you know uh, Dylan pulled out his black and white there, which I think we had talked briefly about what I found so interesting. I was talking about your other one too, though, the premium. Um, and that one was a little bit weird. Some of the information I've learned about that I don't think we've shared on this channel yet
Mm-hmm.
is that it was kind of an interesting one. We thought it was a 1 in 150 variant, and that's actually not quite accurate
Mm,
because and we thought it was weird that we only saw one of those ratios for the last issue in that set. And
mm-hmm.
so what it turns out, in order for a shop to get one copy of those, they had to order 25 copies of each of the Donald Mustard covers. And again, that's another weird thing. It wasn't like you got to order 25 and you got one. They said if you want to have the Donald Mustard cover at all,
Mm-hmm.
period, you have to order 25 of them. And that's a weird thing because in a shop, in theory, if they didn't want to carry too many copies, they could have just ordered that one and not the regular covers. But I don't think
Ah.
many shops did that. I think a lot of shops, if they came to it, they just decided, we're not going to do the premium. But in order to get one of those covers Dylan was showing off, you had to order 25 copies of each of the Donald Mustard covers for the entire series. And that's why some dealers were listing as a 1 in 150,
Mm-hmm.
because you did have to order 150 books, but it was 25 of each of the 6 books. And so that's kind of it's a really weird variant that you don't really see many shops doing that. And ultimately, that is going to be probably one of the rarer Fortnite comics out there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Dang.
Um,
Wow.
but and nothing too wild. I thought I'd start for the softball, just like a little
There you go.
clarification on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, that was interesting because that was one that I think originally I grabbed three of that one, but that was my understanding as well. I kind of just archived it as that's what it was. But that was great information because those are the little nuanced things that come back 10 years from now. That's a part of the conversation 10 years from now, things you find out later on. And with somebody that's been in a comic book hobby as long as you have, you find those things out, probably you surge it probably by 10 years. So that's great that you dropped that dime for us.
Well, it can make a difference with how you're figuring out, an estimate of how many copies might be out there. If you're thinking that, well, we have one for every 150 copies of issue 6,
Hmm.
versus we have one for every 25 copies of the Donald Mustard variants for each issue. It changes those numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but I wish we could get really good, like solid print numbers. I'd be very curious of how many of those actually made it out there because I didn't see too many of them.
Right. Hmm.
I picked this not because it was a 1 of 150. I was grabbing these mainly because of how cool this art is. So, like, if you
Mhm.
guys don't have one yet, let me put it up here. You can see that he sketched the names of the characters around the border,
Hmm.
and I think that is, like, it's not on the colored version.
What's funny is it's I believe it's Art Adams is
It
the
is.
cover
Hmm.
artist, and
Hmm.
he's actually a fairly sought after comic artist himself
Very,
for
yeah.
his material. It's an awesome piece for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was also one of the covers chosen for the DKV cards. So, akaBoG, do you personally think that the people who did the DKV chose those specific ones with any kind of insights?
I don't know. That would be a very interesting question because it's kind of scattershot which ones we got. It doesn't
Mhm.
Right?
necessarily
It looks like
seem
they
to have a
cherry
rhyme or
picked them.
reason. Yeah.
So, like, this is the most popular version of 0.1. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's
Because
definitely
this
like
one I see it was cover B, but this is
it
why I
was
think this.
heavily used in marketing though.
Yeah.
Mhm. So before we move on, Dylan brought up a great perspective. AK Vaught, can you help maybe possibly new collectors understand what Dylan was talking about between like the A and the B and kind of what could
Yeah.
end up happening between, a lot of times it seems as though the A is more popular, but we've talked a couple times. We know that it doesn't always stay that way. So just kind of give some insight on that.
Yeah, so we'll kind of let's just talk variants, and we'll use that to kind of transition into the
Hmm.
foundation talk here.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I like it. So traditionally, comic books used to just ship. You usually just have an A cover.
Mhm.
Eventually, comic printers they realized, hey, if we print two different covers, we can sometimes get one collector to buy them both.
Hmm.
And so they started occasionally doing variants, and you'll have different ones where a good example is the 0 Point series. You had the A cover, which was just the standard cover, and then for the B cover, they actually bumped the price up $1 and gave you a heavier card stock, like it was fancy or something. And then of course the quote unquote premium with the Donald Mustard, they made shops order a minimum of 25. And so again, that was a really weird one because a shop, again, like I said, if they were really hesitant to order a large number of the books for that first series,
Hmm.
which especially with like the Harley Quinn ones, we saw how under ordered the first three books were. They had to go back to print. Um, but it's a weird tactic, and it makes it hard to figure out what numbers you could totally be looking at. But we see it a lot with DC. They very commonly have been doing a cover, a B cardstock variant with 1 in 20. So you have to order 20 copies of a cover of the regular cover to get one of these.
Hmm.
The way that works for the shop is they still pay the same price for that cover. They pay their the $2 or whatever it is, but for that one extra cover, they're able to bump the price up and sell it on the market for a little bit more. So it helps them offset the cost of like doing a bigger order. And so it really favors shops and speculators. And sometimes it can be really frustrating, but it can also result in some incredibly rare variants, which
Hmm.
as collectors we do like.
Yes. Yes.
Um, it's just going to be frustrating sometimes when it's something that's really difficult to get. Um, we mentioned the Fortnite Foundation. Um, that book was a one shot. I
Hmm.
had the A cover, which was by Greg Capullo.
Hmm.
And then they also released the B cardstock cover, and I believe that might have been $1 more. Again, DC was doing that a lot at the time, and that was like kind of a more almost computer graphic style or 3D graphic style
Yeah.
rendering to it, but it's also very cool. And then the third variant was of the 1 in 25 Donald Mustard, and so that one was you did see fewer of those because shops were getting one copy for every 25 of the other two. And I believe they could actually mix the A and the B to whatever levels.
Okay.
And so, generally, though, a lot of the shops would order a lot less of the B cover as well because it's harder for them to sell a cover with it for $1 more to the general fan.
Mhm.
Most of the people coming in just want the code. You know what I mean? And it's interesting too because there wasn't a lot of crossover between the comic collectors and the Fortnite guys. A lot of Fortnite people went out and bought the comics, but a lot of the comic collectors didn't pick them up.
Mhm.
And so it'll be interesting when comic collectors start getting interested in for the first appearances, for the print runs and stuff like that, because they might be difficult to track down because a lot of them aren't going to be in traditional collectors sets. They're not going to be finding these in your normal long boxes when you go to a yard sale or an estate sale or something. A lot of them are going to be in homes in a little box, and so a lot of these copies are going to be really beat up too,
Yeah.
because a lot of the gamers, they don't have comic boards and bags, they don't have good storage setups, and even just putting it like in between, like say some cardboard. Well, if it's not acid free cardboard, you're going to have problems in 10 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately, again, I've always said that comics really, to see like any real gain, and I'll say like real gain is like, I've got a bunch of Star Wars comics that have tripled or quadrupled in price, meaning they went from $3 to $12.
Yeah.
Not very exciting. um, but like something where like with Ultimate Fallout, where I paid $20 for the variant, and it's still, even after the current dip in the market, it's still sitting at easily like 10 to 15, K,
There you go. I was making sure you put that K in there just
Yeah, I would say, it's that's big gains for me, you know
yeah.
what I mean? And ultimately, uh, it's usually with comics, it's 5-10 years before you start seeing anything like that, because it takes time and people
Mm-hmm.
are moving them around, and there's market ebbs, So we'll see what happens with these. But you've got like the three standard covers, and then with the foundation, you guys know we've all talked about these black and white foundation variants before. But they're pretty. There's something else.
Yeah.
There's something totally different, and I don't know. Have we ever really gotten into too much depth
Getting
on here on these,
getting
or
It's been like over a year,
just
or
yeah.
at least
just go
we'll
for
say
it?
it's
Get into it. Get
All
into it.
right. Well, and I've got like some story that we'll get to with it. That I've got even got a script, because I got to be very precise here. But so
So
the
just let me set
overview
up
on
for you real
these,
quick, because if you
yeah.
guys don't know, akaBoG, he had a connection and he's talked to some people who know about this. So akaBoG, me and one other person were the first to get these in hand from the writer, and he has taken it up. He's talked with multiple different people trying to figure out the origin of these. So he is the guy with the most information. So y'all should pay attention if you're interested in the very rare black and white comics. All right, go ahead,
I
A.
say, yeah, let's just dish it out. But basically, the overview is a couple days before the release of the Foundation came out. Writer Christos Gage put up a post on his Twitter that included, he said, "Hey, check out what I got for working on the series," and it had the three covers that we mentioned, and then a black and white one with a blue trade dress on it. And my buddy David messaged me, and he's like, "What do you know about this?" And I was like, "I have no idea." And so he had reached out to Christos Gage and was like hammering him with questions. And Gage was like, "Dude, man, I don't know. I just work on them." He's like, "I have no idea where you could find them or how I got it. I just got a pack with some book with some copies in it." And we were like trying to figure out how we're going to track one of these down or get one, and we didn't hear anything for a long time. And a few months later, my buddy David reached back out to me, and he reached out to Dylan at this time too, and he was like, "Hey guys, are you interested in one of these black and white comics?" And we were like, "Absolutely." What's going on? And the funny thing is that Christos Gage, and he collects 1970s Godzilla comic book art, and that's like his bag.
Mm.
And his wife's rule is, if he wants to get something new, he's got to get rid of something old. And so he reached out to my buddy David and said, "Hey, I'm looking to move a couple of these," and we got them for a steal at the time. I don't know, paid like 500 plus like 50 for shipping each, and he signed them and sent them over to us. And at that time, we kind of talked to him a bit more, and we got a little bit more information out of him. And what we learned was that when he said he got them for working on the series, he actually received a pack with 8 comic books in it. It was the 3 regulars, and he said 5 of the black and whites. But what we quickly realized from looking at the covers and the back covers, because he was like, "Well, which one do I ship where?" And we realized that each of them were different. And so, despite the fact that it's 1 black and white with a blue trade and 4 black and white virgin covers, If you actually flip them around, again, the rear cover is part of the cover of a comic book. You can see that each one of the books has a unique serial number. That right there was a big clue because you actually have to like pay to register your ISBNs. You don't just make them up. You have to have them on file. And so for each one of these, it's a very intentional thing for the company to issue an individual ISBN, and it's not uncommon for comic book companies. It's less common now in the modern age than it was 10 or 15 years ago. But it's not uncommon for a comic company to just keep reusing a barcode. They don't really care. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so collectors like it when they do use unique ones because it makes it a lot easier to catalog and everything. But the other thing with these comics is there's unique text, and so that means that each one of these covers had a unique print file. They are 100% unique variants, and the difference is and basically the type of books that you're getting gives me kind of it made me feel like I kind of had an idea of what they were, and we'll get into that a little later. But very specifically, I feel like they're a polybag promotion. And what I mean by that is when Amazing Spider-Man issue 160, The Death of Ultimate Spider-Man, came out, in that book, they released it in a bunch of poly bags. So it was just bagged, and all the bags were covered. So you couldn't tell what was on the inside. And then when you open it, they had 1 in 25s, 1 in 50s, and they even included some signed books. Now, what Gage told us at the time was he thought these were part of a promotion that had fallen apart or couldn't come together due to social and travel distance guidelines at the time, i.e., the good old vid, was causing problems with travel and you couldn't get groups together. So, how are you going to get someone together to do a signing? We can't. But looking at it, we have the Virgin White, which is the completely clean cover, and on the back it just says the Great Coppola and Jonathan Glapion variant cover, and that's it. Now the other three, what differentiates them is right under that text. It says the let me think what the order is. I think it's the Donald Mustard signed edition, the Scott Snyder signed edition, and the Grey Capullo signed edition. And none of them are signed, which again leads credence to the idea that they were supposed to be signed and maybe thrown in a poly bag. The fact that we've seen so few of these two, I think, kind of leads to the idea that maybe they were only going to be included in the 1 in 25 Donald Mustard variants, which were the quote unquote premium variant. Well, what would make it premium? Well, the chance to get a really rare comic. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So we kind of have this idea of what these might be. We talked to Gage. It turns out that he took his Virgin variant and he gave that to a comic shop that he's friendly with in North Carolina, and they auctioned that off for $1,000. So it turns out that's the first one that we know for sure sold anywhere, because that sold before he had reached out to us. From there, we purchased our three, which were the unsigned signed artist editions. I got the Scott Snyder. My buddy David, who set the deal up originally, I believe went with the Donald Mustard. And Dylan, you got the Grey Capullo, right? Which, funnily enough, is the only one I don't have. And
Yeah,
believe
and
me, I've talked to him about that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're not getting this."
yeah, this this
I was
one
just
is
saying, look here. I'll put mine up. We got the sisters right here with Christos Gage's baby scribble. I don't think
Yeah,
he's been asked to sign too much.
yeah, you got to work on that auto for sure.
Yeah, but
which I don't care because this was
I don't
special
care.
because this is how we found it, and
Mhm.
the fact that this is the writer that we got to sign these is pretty
It's
cool to
beautiful.
me.
Yeah, there's only
Um,
Yeah.
3 of those books out there.
so I mean, cover art wise, I mean, you guys see our logo, you see our website. We like black and white. Our
Mhm.
logo tees black and white. The black and white on this comic and like just the art on this is just crazy. You
Yeah.
got the Foundation fighting Batman. Um, it's sick.
So
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about what these are, but let's talk about the numbers a little bit. So we know, and it's funny because it's so rare to be able to, like, you can trace comics. Oh, there's 1 in 100. There's 1 in 2. You don't know where those 100 are. we kind of know where almost every one of these that's known to exist is at right now, which is crazy.
Which is,
Because
do you have a
we,
number that?
I say right now for sure we know of 22 and suspect a total of 23 across all the variants. And I'll just lay them out real quick. We went over Christos Gage's version that he gave to the shop. We've got three of his other ones. About maybe 8 months later, a year later, he reached back out to my buddy David, who brokered the deal, because he wanted something else, and he sold him his blue trade variant.
Mm.
So we know where all of Christos Gage's copies are. Two are with David, and we've got the other ones. You know what I mean? We don't know where that Virgin ended up, but we know where it was sold from, and those guys probably know where it's at. So that's the first five, the first set. Now, when we first started talking about these on my YouTube channel, Free, who was in the chat, Free Energy, I don't know if he's still here, Free Comics, he he took my advice, which was to look at the other creators in the book and to go out to reach out to them to
Mhm.
see if they had copies. He tracked down the interior artist, Erickson, or I think it's Erickson. I could be wrong on the last name, but whoever the interior artist was for the book, he tracked him down at a Comic Con in Texas. Went up to him at the booth, and he could see in his stack two little black and white spines sticking out. And he was like, "Hey, what are those?" And he was like, "Ah, just some variants." And my buddy's like, "Well, how much are those? Can I get them?" And he's like, $10 each. So Free,
Of
he's the
course.
real winner. Free in the chat here, he paid $10. He got and I could be wrong. Free, correct me on this. I believe he got a Virgin and a Donald Mustard at that time.
Wow.
I could be wrong. Or no, I want to say a Virgin and a Capolo because I've been trying to get his Capolo, and he just laughs at me as well. Um,
From 20. You can't say no to doubling up.
yeah,
Yeah.
so but he did get two of them. So we now the truth is, Erickson didn't have any others at that time and couldn't. It's the same thing. These artists don't really know what they have. They're just used to getting a little pack of comics and going off with it, right? So there he is. He said he got the trade dress with a blue trade dress and the capullo.
Mhm.
And so that's like the find of the century, as far as I'm concerned, man. But he I believe he even talked to him, and he really couldn't tell him much about him. Hickson signed him. It's Hickson, thank you, not Erickson, my bad. So
I threw
he's
them up
got
here for the people. If anybody wants to do the same method, this is who we, correct me if I'm wrong, Bog, but this is who we think each got a set, correct?
probably, yeah, and like I had even sent Free the if you open up the issue, it's got like the inker and the letter,
Yeah.
and Free was pretty relentless. I think David, my buddy David, have reached out to pretty much everyone they can, and people either won't respond or said they never saw any or don't know anything. And so there's the Hickson set, which we only know two exist, but we suspect there's all five, and that he just sold the other three before Free got there. And there's the Gage set. All right, and for the longest time, those are the only ones that we knew of. And like I said, some of my subs are out there hounding these dudes trying to figure out where these books are. And fast forward to San Diego Comic Con 2022, and like a week after San Diego Comic Con, we started seeing copies pop up on eBay, and we started jumping and messaging the guy selling. We're like, "Yo, which one is this? What's the barcode?" Because he wasn't listing them very clear, and we weren't sure if it was the Virgin or what. And I ended up picking up one for, I think it was $13.50 for the blue trade dress. And then right afterwards, like an hour later, I think I snagged my Donald Mustard for, I hate saying it, but like 19.50 or something like
And
that.
he's not talking about 13.50 as in $13.50.
There's K's after those, yeah. There's K's, yeah.
Should we throw that eBay account up here for them to
Yeah,
know where we
yeah,
got that from?
absolutely. And
We
so we
blow up
reached out
everything
to this
here.
guy. We reached out to him. We were like, "Dude, how do you have these?" Because the thing is, as soon as I bought my blue trade dress, he made a second grab option or whatever available to the second highest bidder who took it. And we immediately panicked, right? Oh no, does he understand the different barcodes? Does he really have two of these? Why would he have two of these? And so we started talking to him, and basically all we could get out of him was that he had purchased them um, from San Diego Comic Con, and he wouldn't tell us who he bought them from. But he bought 2 sets of 5, one of each. So he got 2 of each of the 5 different variants. And I'm pretty sure he ended up selling all of those. And honestly, that's where most of us who have these right now have them, because we were all bidding against each other. MC was up in there. He got one of them, I know. I think Randy got a couple of them. You know what I
Yeah, a
mean?
couple.
And yeah, yes. I would say Randy, but I have got more than a couple. But that's where a bulk of them came from. And again, for a really long time, there was no information. So at this set, we have 2 San Diego Comic Con sets, the Hickson and the Gage sets. Next thing I know, one of my buddies messaged me and is telling me this dude who's selling on Instagram has one sitting there that he's trying to sell for like 3 or 4 grand. And so I reached out to him, and it turns out he was at San Diego Comic Con. He bought a box of variants from somebody, and in that box of variants were a set of 5 variants. And he says the 5, but he probably had a set of all 8, but nobody cares about the first 3. You know what I mean? And so now there's 3 sets from San Diego Comic Con. Now it's been what? It's been a year. It's been over a year, and we haven't seen any more pop up. Um, and anything else. And if you guys want, I can get into my like kind of behind the scenes story here. Right?
Yeah,
Let me
go
pull
ahead.
up my script. Yeah. So it says, okay, I have to be precise with what I say about this position. So I have a script. So basically, late last year, this quote unquote buyer beware post showed up on a popular comic collecting app. And this was at the end of 2022, after we'd seen some of these crazy sales going off, right? Um, my friend reached out to one of the contacts that works for them. This is what he said. He said, um, this is what he said about the buyer beware category, or what he said it was about. Books people should stay away from, since they've had what appears to be shill bidding listings and all that. And so I reached out because I wanted to clarify the record and speak to these real sales to get the book removed from this category. So this category is traditionally one where they kind of warn people like, hey, there's some weird bidding things going on here. People are doing
Mhm.
this. Stay away from these. We don't know what it is, right? Um, Basically, the post stated that it was an on-release variant. Supposedly, the only copies were given to creators on the series, and there's an estimated print count under 100, which tells me they're pulling their information from Dylan's website, because you had that up for a long time because you had overestimated what I was putting on there to be safe.
Yeah, so to clarify that, so because each one had I think if you count the people inside the cover, like you count all the editors and everything, I think I came up with 11 people's names credited to the Foundation comic, and there was 5 different variants. So to be safe for my viewers, since I had one, I doubled it, so that's like 55, right? So I went ahead and I doubled it. Said it's at least probably less than 100 is what I said,
Yep.
and I clarified that there too. But they did take it. And,
I say if you see this number where it's the print count is 100, it's because they're pulling information from your site.
yeah,
Yep. That's where that. Here's the thing: there's so few of these, we can trace the information. Like we know where that why he's saying there's 100 copies, because he saw it on your website. Because we know the exact genesis of how that number came about. So that's kind of weird in itself. But I'll go on. They also note that this includes 2 variants: one with a blue trade dress and one with a virgin cover art. So this was another reason my friend reached out to explain the differences, because he wanted them to know that it wasn't just the 2, that there's actually the 5 variants, and there's 5 different barcodes they should be looking at, right? He got a response saying, thanks for the info. And my buddy went in and he just provided basically everything we've talked about up to this point, right? And let's see here. The contact, so let's see. Um, so the contact responded that he was hoping to have clarification soon. and that he had an email out to DC's head of marketing, and who usually responds to him within a day. At this time, it appeared that they were going to update the buyer beware post or create a new listing of some sort. And so, again, this is him reaching out to his contact at DC from this collecting app. And that's a pretty high level guy. The head of marketing is who we're getting this info from now at this point. So, almost a week later, my buddy reached out again to see if they had received a response from DC. And he received word from his contact that yes, yesterday afternoon, but should have more info next week on how to write the listing. That's the response he got back, right? He didn't hear anything after that for 11 days. So he reached back out for another update, and this is the exact response he got. Not yet. Last thing communication was a request for all of the descriptions and the links you guys provided. It appears to be a corporate matter, so I'm not going to follow up until January 2023. My friend thanked him for his efforts, and his exact response was, "Everything you explained is verified. I can't include that detail you communicated, though, because I was asked not to, and there's a little more to this situation that could blow back on the sellers in the future if the worst case scenario happens." So at this point, my friend was like, asked for blowback. Like, what is this worst case scenario you speak of? Is this something like people selling copies from a warehouse? Are there copies that are there copies that were printed and going to be released in Walmart packs, or something completely different? And his response was, "I was asked not to discuss the details. I think everyone over there, no matter their title, is worried about getting laid off. Mind you, January 2023, this is when Zaslaw came into WB and was like on the warpath from WB, and was laying waste to a bunch of DC employees. They removed the DC offices from New York, right? So there was a weird environment at the time, and we haven't heard anything new since. So, but they want to avoid any excuse for them to be on the chopping block. You pretty much gave one example for what a worst case scenario could be, but there is nothing actually planned." And that's what we got. So does that mean there is a stack of them sitting in a warehouse somewhere? I don't think so. And again, I think it's probably that these were intended for a promotion for the premium bag ones. But at the end of the day, if there is a stack of these sitting out there, they would probably be the virgins. Or, excuse me, not the virgins. They would probably be the trade dress, which is wild because the blue trade dress right now is the quote unquote rarest one. Even though they're all equally rare, but it has the most unique cover art, right? There's only one of those, and the other four have the same cover but different backs. You know what I mean?
I'll explain that real quick because I'll throw it up here on the screen. I'm blowing up my spot because I didn't have one of these, but that's the one that I want. So for someone who has one, I feel like since I have the Virgin, I don't care too much about all the ones that say they're signed. Since I have one, I know some people want to complete it, which is an amazing set. I will never be able to complete all 5, but I do want the trade dress one. And to me, it is the most rare because I consider all the other ones pretty much the same, right? And the blue one's the only one that's different. So I feel like, to me, feels like it's super rare.
Well, and I'll explain too, because if it turns out that these are from some sort of polybag promo, traditionally the way that those work, if they're totally tiered, perfect for it too. Again, the best example is the Ultimate Spider-Man 160 promotion from years back, because you had your regular cover, you have got your 3 covers, and then typically for the first one you're going to have is going to be the black and white with the trade art on it, because usually a virgin cover is considered cleaner and rarer than a trade dress one, right? And so if you look at the ISBN numbers, what is the ISBN for the blue trade? It's number 4, right? Because if you look at them, at the tail end, it's either 11, 21, 31, 41, 51, 61, 71, 81, right? So they go in sequence. Number 41 is the blue trade dress. So the blue trade dress, if there are stacks out there anywhere, it's going to be that one. Sorry to tell you guys that. I don't think that's the case. I think these were going to be incredibly rare, and there's not many of them. They're going to sign a few and throw them out there as a premium special, But the second most common, if this is the case, would then be just the plain version. That would be like, in theory, maybe the blue trade would be like a 1 in 50, and that's like a 1 in 100. And then the signs would be like, oh, we did 10 of each or something like that.
Mhm.
The truth is, though, if that were the case and it's been 3 years and we've seen DC and Marvel both switch, the thing is, when Marvel switched from the distributor process, when they moved away from Diamond, you saw a bunch of weird, rare variants end up in the Walmart packs for about a month and a half, right?
For
And
our audience probably doesn't know what those are. So
okay,
real quick, the Walmart packs. If you go into a Walmart store, next to the card section, there's actually comics, and it's a pack of like 3 to 5, depending, of random comics, and you can't see what they are unless you do something illegal and open it up and look through them. And they've already had Fortnite in there. Just so you guys know, they went through the 0 points, made
there
it
was
in
a
there.
bunch of the 0 points from the second and third printings in particular, right?
Hmm.
And then they also had um, what is, again, the one that was really weird that showed up right after Marvel canceled the deal with Diamond. So I think what happened is Diamond just was like, oh, Marvel just screwed us. Here's everything, and they just slashed it to Walmart. They
Mhm.
just, because they want their warehouse space back, right? And right after that happened, we saw like 5 or 6 people on Facebook reporting that one of the variants they got in their Marvel pack was a black and white, one per store, thank you, Fortnite variant. And this was, mind you, a year and a half after that had been released. Why would those be showing up? Well, it's because they just cleared out the warehouse of all the Marvel stuff, right? The thing is, Diamond's already cleared out the warehouse of all their Fortnite stuff. All right. So if they were there, we would have seen these hit, I suspect, right? Now, what happens with San Diego and with them saying the sellers, it might blow back on them, is maybe they have a few at the office, right? Or something like that, and someone went and took a couple of those packs that they previously had just sent to the artists, right? And sold them at under the table at San Diego Comic Con. That would be a little concerning because it would indicate a higher quantity of them. But again, that was over a year ago, and we still haven't seen more, and we've seen these prices. If they were sitting there, you would think that the employees would be like awfully tempted to go doing that. So who knows what's going on with these? They're extremely weird. We know for a fact that we suspect there's a total of 5 of each that we actually have seen floating around, and that's it. Even less than 5 in each because we haven't seen the whole Hickson set
Mhm.
officially. You know,
So if I'm getting this straight, right? So based on what we think is these were tiered. The blue trade dress was supposed to be the most common one of these 5 to be found, but because they were never actually released, right now it's the rarest version,
rarest cover, I would say, because yeah,
rarest cover art. We'll say that for this.
yep.
But if they did print them and just never distributed them, it is possible that if they were ever just sold to like Walmart or something like that, that's probably the one that would get out the most because that one probably printed the most if they did get to the print. Is that correct?
Basically that's exactly it. But again, I
Highly
I
unlikely.
really feel like we would have seen them. What we're seeing in the current packs from Walmart and DC, we haven't seen Walmart Marvel packs in a while.
Yeah.
From DC, we just saw a new round of them, and it was all stuff from the last couple, like the last few months, all recent stuff, not old stuff. And again, like the way that process works, they get that out of there to clear space. So I really, and again, I will point out again, going back to the email. So what the our contact who is talking to DC's head of marketing, right, came back and his exact quote was, "Everything you explained is verified."
Hmm.
Okay. And at that time, what we were explaining was that there were 5 known copies of each, that they're incredibly rare, they were intended for the promotion, and they hadn't been released. And that was the information that this guy says was verified by DC's head of marketing. So again, I don't know. I feel like if there was a stack of 1,000 of them sitting out there, we'd see more of them floating around. But as of right now, we can say that we've seen 22 of them, and we haven't
Mhm.
seen any others that we can't say, oh, that's this one that came from here.
And we
Right.
just want to reiterate, as of right now, they seem extremely, extremely rare. But on my channel, I like to be as open as possible. This is not investment advice. We
Yeah.
don't know what could happen, what they have hidden. So all we have is all the information we have is what akaBoG got with the marketing director. So take that
This
and
is
we're
why
just
we're
trying to.
having the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
We're literally just putting all the cards out there and saying like, what do you guys think about this? Because I don't know. It's almost what we were doing with Don Muster earlier. We're speculating. We're trying to understand the signs that we're seeing. Some things make sense and line up a specific way. You know.
So with the black and white, hopefully everyone understands now. We've been through it a couple of times. I'm glad we covered it again because you have such great details on it. So now that we got that covered, that it's like super hard to find these. It's kind of like the prototypes, like people are saying. They're like ghost books, right? And so for those who probably won't be able to find them, right? Because and if they do, they might be out of the price range. Are there any book? What are your like top 5 books right now that people, if they were interested in looking, that if they can't get the black and white, that they should think about getting? You have those on top of your head?
Yeah. I'll put another one that's probably out of reach in a lot of ways, which is of course the one in 500 monofoil. You mentioned the black and whites. I think I've said it before too. I think that I always look at these foundation black and whites like like the prototype trading cards that Wayne found. Whereas like the one in 500 monofoil variant is kind of, I equate that more to the Black Knight shard of comics. You know what I mean? That's a little
Mhm.
bit more attainable, but that's like the top dog. From there, Dylan showed his awesome Art Adams variant. Those were not going for terribly pricey. Those were definitely achievable the last time I was looking, but they were drying up and disappearing. So that's one that'll probably become difficult to find at some point. Um, and of course, any of the Donald Mustards, especially with the news today that he's retiring, I hope we get to
Yeah.
see more. But when someone moves on from a position like that, it's not uncommon that you don't see any more of that kind of work. And so, I said I hope we get to see him doing like, I would love to see him just doing comic covers,
Yeah.
not even just Fortnite stuff.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see. So I'm really eager to learn more about that. But on the like flip side, so I've given out the ones everybody knows about, but let's talk about some stuff that's a little bit crazier. With the recent Marvel series, some of those variants turned out to be extremely tricky to get, and I was able to secure them ahead of time because I had like ordered enough copies to justify my
Hmm.
shop bringing them in.
Yep.
But in particular, some of those 1 in 50s, he was like getting one in only because of the a heavy order I had put in. Um,
Same.
and I think it was like, yeah, perfect. Like the first issue, that 1 in 50 Cassie, I do believe I'd have to double check, but I believe that's the first cover appearance of Sloan too. So that
Yes.
gives it a little like a oomph, a little extra pack there. I love that 1 in 25 cover. I think that actually has some of the coolest art for the first in that series.
Yeah.
Um, I think uh, one of the surprises for the first book in that series is how many exclusives we had.
Hmm.
You had the Mika and Dolfo art with X23 and Saki or
Hmm.
Suki, and that one has that Virgin, which is probably actually still available because they were charging so much for it. People were picking
Right.
up the regular, but kind of skipping that one. But those are both limited to like 3,000 or less copies.
Yeah.
And so long term, those will be very difficult to track down. We see the Momoka on there, which is always an awesome choice. I love her stuff. But I think that long term has like actual potential for good growth is the Rogue and Gambit cover. That's a Derek Chu cover. He's an extremely popular um, comic artist. He's known for doing like cheese covers and like really cute girls and like doing just awesome poses.
Dang, I don't have that one.
And
Mm.
so it's actually a really nice. It's like a different take on Rogue. She's a little bit more voluptuous than you would normally see. Right? She's a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
thicker. She's a little more like Penny, maybe, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? And it's actually a really awesome cover, which came out right around the time that they were married in the comics and everything. I
Mm-hmm.
believe they still are. Um, and so that's kind of a little bit of a sleeper one. The Daredevil one on the right there, I think that was the 1 in 25, maybe for issue 4, something
Yep.
like
Mm-hmm.
that. That one is particularly cool because it totally just looks like a Marvel cover. The hybrids in it easily could stand in for the Marvel's The Hand, you know, and so I really like that Rogue one, and of course the top front for me on that series is that Donald Mustard Wolverine, that pink with the pink and white with the Wolverine and that
Mm-hmm.
black. It's like such a simple but cool cover with the 0 point in it and
It's
everything.
awesome.
It's I think we'll see what happens, but that could become an iconic piece of art for the
Did you
series.
talk about these 4 yet?
I talked
Mm-hmm.
about the two of them, but not the UK variants. And all right, so this is another interesting one. All right, so when these came out, they were both available from a UK seller, um, and like Phantom Comics or something like that. Maybe I can't remember off the top of my head, but in particular, the one with Midas and Spider Man, you could only get from ordering on their website.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting is when I got the order form from my shop, they included the Miles Morales variant on it, and I was like, "Dude, are you sure you can order this? This is supposed to be a UK only variant." And the price for it was listed at like £4, and he's like, "I don't know what's going on with this. And so he's like, "I'll try and order you one, right?" Well, my order eventually came in, and I didn't get a copy. I ended up having to order that one from the UK as well. But if you look on the rear covers of those, one of them says it's a UK exclusive, and the other one does not. And
Which
so
one
what?
says exclusive?
The one with Spider-Man and Midas.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I had trouble getting. I
Yeah.
think I only have the Meow School ones.
And so the Meowsa ones with Miles Morales, that one, it's weird because that's the one that was solicited here. I saw people that got them here in the states. I didn't get one, even though I pre-ordered it. I'm
I
pretty
got it.
sure. I was gonna say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
what happened with that one is I'm pretty sure because they did the custom covers, right?
Yeah.
I bet you anything that they went in with somebody as a partner, and as part of that deal, they gave them 500 copies of the Miles Morales book because
Mm-hmm.
Miles will sell anywhere, right? And so 500, so those aren't the UK Phantom whatever exclusive because they gave some of those as part of the expense. So
Mm-hmm.
like 500 of them were made it to like Diamond Distributor, and they were allocated amongst the orders that people place.
Yeah.
So that's another one that was kind of weird. And I don't know how many people would go back out if they missed that one and order all the way from the UK if they weren't getting both of them.
Yep. That if you want to go, Dylan, go to 0 point real quick. Stop. Go back up a little bit, slowly, slowly, slowly.
It's foundation up. You
I
want me to go
mean,
down?
go back. Go back down. Yep. Keep going. Okay, stop. So his name is slipping my mind. I thought you would have it on here, but
I
Batman
got lazy on
Fortnite.
some of these. Sorry.
Batman Fortnite 0 point number 6 is an extremely popular artist. He just passed away last year, I believe. But
Yeah.
I knew about him. I knew about him from the the fashion side of the world. I didn't originally know he did this cover
Which one? The
until
middle one?
yep, until his artwork ended up in game. He
Yeah.
has a loading screen as well. When I noticed the loading screen, I said this looks similar. So I went back and obviously seen that he did the number 6 cover. I'll get the name of the artist and put it in the comment section. But little things like that, and kind of to what akaBoG is getting at, is these comic books are slow growth. So seeing what happens over time is gonna be fun to see.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but we also have the Marvel collab ones. Do you still feel strongly about this Black Widow one? Because this is where we connected like years ago. I was like, "Hey, hey, Black, do you have this one? You remember?"
Yeah.
And it was because it was Black Widow, and
Well, you
so
showed it to me, and at the time I was like very budget conscious, and I was like, I'm not trying to get everyone, and I don't really want to get crazy and chase after this incentive that's literally just a black and white version of the Captain America. And you're like, yeah, but it's a Black Widow comic. And I was like, what? And I looked closer and I was like, dude, what is going on here? And one of the things that we've seen with Fortnite comics that happens that you don't really see with any other that's not normal is they use art from one title to another weirdly. You know, we saw it with the issue 1 0 point where they used the B cover as the issue 1 reprint for Free Comic Book Day A cover. And then like with this one, they're using Captain America variant art, but just uncolorized for the thank you on a Black Widow comic, which is weird. Like maybe they were thinking people would think it was like a version of Black Widow with Captain America, or I don't know. But it's
Yeah, it's weird.
unusual.
It's a weird pairing, right? Like it
It's
has
weird.
nothing to do with Black Widow.
It's really weird. And so that one, as a quote unquote, it's known almost. It's a thank you variant, but it's also some people refer to as a one per store variant. But if I believe what to get one, you actually had to order like 30 or 50 copies of Black Widow issue 1. You had to order.
Yeah.
So it's not even a one per store. And at the time it came out, the store count was like 2,112 stores. So you're probably looking at less than 2,000 of those. And like I said, we did see some hit Marvel packs, but they were few and far between. They were, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't know what this is," and it's like that's actually a pretty rare comic to get.
Yeah,
But
I mean, and the other thing, I said this on our forum on FortniteCards.com, but the fact that they used Bright Bomber with Captain America here, and then 2 years later, Bright Bomber got a Captain America skin, still
Mm-hmm.
seems crazy to me.
well, it took them a long time to release Black Panther after we saw Black Panther on one of the covers
Yep.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yes, well, while we're right here too, if you scroll up a little bit, one of the covers I definitely other way is the one for Deadpool. Deadpool's always going to be fire. That one also, I believe, is technically the first cover appearance of Peely. It's
Mm-hmm.
also the first cover appearance of the Battle Bus, although that is the Battle Bus with the Deadpool theme. But every character on that cover was also in the game, and so that one is actually, I think, one of the cooler covers too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
this is one of the ones that I grabbed, and I was like, okay, I don't have any Peely cards, but I'm getting the first appearance of Peely here, and the cover was sick, so I was like, I got to get this in a 9.8. And at the time, it was kind of hard to find. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you experienced that, but compared to all the other ones, yeah, I don't know what the print run is of this one, but it was hard for me to find, so I grabbed as many as I could, which is like, I don't know, 20 to 30. I don't know.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Nice.
And not to assume that everybody's understanding comic book collecting. What akaBoG is getting at is the same way if you're a card collector, rookie cards and things like that. First appearance means this is the obviously the first appearance of this skin. That's a major thing in the comic book collecting world. So those are the things that you look out for. Luckily, hopefully Fortnite comics continue, but luckily we're at a point where it's kind of what Westdrum was getting at. Even though there's a lot of comics out there for Fortnite, it's still manageable compared to all the other runs that we have seen. I mean, you go back 50, 60 years if you really like a superhero or a villain. So it's very manageable. The prices are obtainable, like akaBoG is getting at. So it's definitely opportunities for you still to grab them when you're ready.
Let me take a moment just to kind of equate that to other comic collectors.
Yeah.
I see it all the time with guys who've decided to collect this run of Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man. Common one is Amazing Spider-Man issue 100 through issue 400,
Yeah.
because they're not too hard to find. There's a few pricey ones in there, but it's when
Hmm.
you get into the sub hundreds that you really start losing your shirt.
Right.
And so it's the same, and you'll see it like some people say, I'm collecting the entire volume 2 of Punisher,
Hmm.
or and so it as like a sub collection, it's actually a really perfect little tiny collection to get into, and there's already some tough ones to find. But when you're talking like something like trying to get the first 100 issues of ASM or top 200 of Batman or something, some of those books are 50, 60, 80,
Yeah.
100. You know, it starts getting wild. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And when you're looking at from that perspective, if the most expensive, you have two books that in the set that are a couple thousand or something like that. I still will occasionally see a monofoil pop up raw for seven or
Yeah.
800 bucks. You know,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, that's not too outrageous, and it's
Yep.
totally a doable set. You could definitely get it in there.
Yeah.
As Warfighter said here, that like some streamers, most people who play Fortnite who stream and stuff have like given out the codes and done stuff with them when they came out. They get at least one video, two videos when they come out because it gets pushed in the game. Like there's a whole Marvel
Hmm.
season. So I get where they're coming from. Gamers don't necessarily know about the cards for the most part, like 99%. Um, most of them know there was a comic. Right. So I
Yeah.
agree. And I've actually seen streamers display their stuff behind them like I do.
Hmm.
Not as cool as us though, right? But
Hmm.
they'll throw up one comic there. So that is a good point that Warfighter has here.
For
Well,
sure.
and I'll point out, like with the codes, a lot again. I think that only benefits the comic collectors long term because a lot of
Hmm.
those guys who ended up buying these codes ripped them out. Those books got shredded. They were
Hmm.
thrown. So it's not. At the end of the day, looking at because unfortunately, when the publishers switched from Diamond, we lost any kind of sense of sales numbers that we were getting.
Yeah.
We were getting estimates and everything that we could do estimated print runs. And when they moved from Diamond to Lunar and everyone else, we lost all that. So we have no idea what comic sales numbers are right now. There's no
Yeah.
information that is reliable in any way since at all.
Right.
But up until that point, it really looked like every Fortnite comic was selling about 85 to 95,000 in issues. Some of them peaked higher than that. The Fourth Foundation one was cracking 100,000, and 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 again, I keep telling all the comic collectors I talk to, like, man, you should check out Fortnite comics because people are paying $200 for a Metal Gear Solid comic because video games are big, and it's like, well, you should be looking at Fortnite, and getting into it now before it starts getting up there. And look how many first appearances there are. Look how many cover appearances. Look how many
Hmm.
crossovers there are. It's still actively being played. It's not a dead game. There's
Yeah.
so many things going for it. And the comic collector's like, I don't play Fortnite. And
Yeah.
it's crazy to me, man. Like it's so weird, like the disconnect between comic collectors and Fortnite. For me, I love it. I've been collecting comics for 30 years, and I've been
Yeah.
playing Fortnite for over 5. You know what I mean? Two of my favorite things.
Yeah.
But
You, s-
there's
you
that
know,
disconnect, and we're going to see a lot fewer pristine copies long term
Hmm.
compared to those print numbers.
the thing you said there, which I've talked about this with the cards before, and it's just Fortnite in general. It's like I've noticed as I get older how history repeats itself. Like whether you're talking about like the stock market, whether you're talking about collectibles, whether you're talking about war, whether you're talking about anything, like inflation, like things repeat themselves. And growing up through the Pokemon era, and then in high school through anime being lame, and like
Hmm.
seeing like how that's changed, and over time now people are huge on Pokemon because they're older and they don't have that peer pressure to be, oh, it's lame. Same thing with anime. People who grew up on anime, when you were in high school, that was lame if you were into anime. Now
Yeah.
everyone is, right? So Fortnite has to go through that too. Like history repeats itself. So the reason why Fortnite gets all that slack, in my opinion, is because they still think it's a kids game because it's so popular on social medias. Just like social media was for kids, like TikTok
Hmm.
was for kids, and now businesses are using it and things like that. So once Fortnite breaks that mold, it's going to be chaos, in my
Well,
opinion. Not investment advice. I'm just
yeah. Well, let me add to that because one of the things that I don't think that I've never seen with any of these other ones is like Fortnite's generational in a way that a lot of these entertainment pieces are not. Um, I used to talk. My mom read Lord of the Rings to me as a kid when I was growing up. We would talk about the movies, but she's never going to play a Lord of the Rings game. This, that, or the other. Fortnite, I play with my son frequently.
Hmm.
um, he's actually the one who got me playing Fortnite. He's like, check this out, Dad. It's pretty cool. You know what I mean? And uh, the other day I started playing with a volunteer at my railroad museum. He joined up and we started playing with him. Turns out he started playing because his grandkids in Germany play with him every morning.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, that's
he'll
cool.
log in the morning to play with his grandkids for an hour or two or something like that. Um, One of my coworkers, he just was the other day. He's like, "Oh, I heard you guys play Fortnite." He's like, "I started playing that with my dad. Maybe I could play sometime." So there's like all these like people who are playing with their kids, and you don't even see that necessarily with Pokemon. Like I'll do Pokemon Go with my son, but I've never played Pokemon Stadium or any of
Mm-hmm.
these new ones with him or anything like that. And for me, man, the base that Fortnite has, like for long term, like growth and success, is like I just feel like that base is way bigger than a lot of these other properties we've even seen before.
Well, you can even see that it's almost intentional, right? Because you've read the comics. If you guys haven't read the comics, first of all, they're great. And that's not I'm not a comic snob, right? Because I didn't get into comics until Fortnite, right? But like I read the reviews and even comic snobs like it, and I enjoyed this story, and it got me into comics. That's how good it was. But like it wasn't kiddish, right? So like there were scenes in it that were like almost X-rated. They had like Wolverine. They were talking about like sexual relations and things like that. So like it's made for adults, and people don't realize that Fortnite is balanced on that line between fun for adults and for kids. And they're bringing out Legos, but they also bring out IPs that only adults know, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like geared towards them. So like Pokemon can't do that. There's not very many IPs that can keep that balance. It's a hard balance, but
Well, they do it
pretty
really
neat.
well. They you see them with Walking Dead commingling with Justice League.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not like you said, it's not easy, but if you can do it, and that's the thing is if you can make it entertaining and interesting to the adults, but also accessible without getting too heavy handed, that's where you're going to find that just that huge audience, and we're seeing it with their player counts all the time.
Yeah. That's what you're saying, what Brian and we've I've been saying this for the longest time. It was the first aha moment for me. Obviously, I know I started playing with my brother. Me and my brother are 12 years apart, and this is the first game he was ever better than me at. So that's the type of things that happen. But like you said, is definitely generational. And one thing I'll say, throwing it back to the comics though, is the one that made Fortnite straddle that fence for being adults was Donald Mustard. The reason why I say that, and I know that for a fact, is because his covers were technically the only ones with blood on them. His covers were the only one that kind of had that edge to it. When you think of the covers, you think of the one with Skull Trooper and Drift. You think of those covers like that. So the direction of how edgy the comics will stay after this if they continue, we don't know for sure. And I think that's what the beauty is of these. We have the issues of this era, and another era is about to take place if they continue, and hopefully it stays the same. But if it doesn't, we have the ones to hold on to.
Yeah, change, like I said, I don't like change, but change is not always bad either. Sometimes
Yeah.
it can be good. It's just sometimes not fun. Ah,
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So I have a question for you because we're getting close to the end of the episode, and it's been a great one. It's exciting. Um, but with Donald Mustard gone, I mean, for the longest time, we've been looking at in-game stuff and looking at storyline stuff for us to try to gauge how can we get ahead and collect stuff before it happens. So we base a lot of that stuff on Donald Mustard. Of course, the foundation is kind of obvious. Like I don't think that's going anywhere. It's baked into the seasons. But there's other ones like we've been about like Paradigm. We've talked about Singularity, the whole Singularity thing that he said on his stuff. Does the stuff that Donald Mustard said in his Instagram and all his tweets, does it lose a little bit of luster? Like he said Midas was definitely coming back. Now that he's gone from Epic Games, is that less of a obvious answer now?
I think we're in definitely unknown territory, and it's like
Mhm.
wait and see.
Yeah.
I think anything is either anything at this point. It's nothing more than a guess. You know what I mean? So we'll
Yeah.
have to wait and see. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was big on Midas. I was collecting the comics that had Midas's first appearances in it. I mean, he's a big Series 3 skin card, so I don't know. I was
Yeah,
just it's just so much that I'm just disappointed about today. You know.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very I kind of touched on that in the earlier in the episode. It's very possible, especially if the person has been following, like let's say they don't hire anybody just fresh, like fresh eyes. Like let's say this person has been a part of Fortnite the way Donald Mustard was, right? He has his own favorite characters, his own favorite skins. He or she has to say, they have their own favorite characters, their favorite skins. And with that being said, those Midases can be pushed to the back. Those paradigms can be pushed to the back. Maybe that was a conflict, that was in the inside. We see this in everything across business, across sports. It's those one little factors. The next thing you know, the next rollout is completely different. And I can see that happening, and I guess it will have to factor in. Once again, I always say this. A lot of times we talk about what future collectors are going to say, but we're the early adapters. We're the ones that collect now. So how we adjust to that is probably going to be the thing. How we factor in what Midas meant during the Donald Mustard era is going to be important compared to what is going to be in the future. So I'm interested to see how everybody adapts to what has happened already and what will happen in the future.
I'm throwing akaBoG's Twitter into the feed,
Oh,
so you
thanks.
guys can go and subscribe to him.
YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube. Sorry, not Twitter. I don't know why I said Twitter, but yeah, he's
X.
YouTube. So I get what you're saying. I wanted Warfighters over here saying that what if he was holding back the storyline? So Donald Mustard was the creative director. He pretty much like is Fortnite, right? And Fortnite is the biggest game of our lifetime, pretty much. Right? What they did is incredible. They changed the landscape, which would not have been possible without his vision for this game. So to say that he was holding anything back, there's no way he held anything back. Can they improve by bringing somebody else in? Yes, but I don't think that he held the storyline back. I think the
Uh,
storyline was because of him. Now, yes, the last year is falling apart a little bit, but we don't know why. And then if things don't change, if someone comes in with the same environment that he had, it might not change. So I hesitate to throw the bricks on him. Donald Mustard has done an amazing job. Um, I fell in love with Fortnite because of what he visioned, and we have to remember it's not just the storyline. Like he was the creative director, so like there's like videos of him talking about what weapons, what maps. He had his hands in everything.
mhm,
So it's just and like you remember the article we showed where he
mhm,
explained the actual storyline of Fortnite and how the island is the main character, not
mhm,
everyone else. Jonesy's not the main character; it's the 0 Point. That's the main character, and everyone is their own main character living through this world
mhm.
with every update. It was brilliant, in my opinion.
Maybe we'll get some hints when season 5 comes out,
That's true.
Yeah. Uh,
which is timed to which be with this. It's rumored to be right around the
Oh,
same time that we might be getting this new comic.
yeah.
so with that, that's a good point. We told you guys that a Lego season was coming. So this season is a short season. So if you're not gonna get to level 100 or level 200 or whatever you're trying to get to, it's gonna be hard to get there. It's a short season. They were supposed to be releasing a short Lego season before the new chapter. Well, it turns out that was false or canceled or pushed or whatever. Now it's just going to be a regular season. So we will have 5 seasons this year. So November through December is going to be its own season, and then chapter 5 will start.
Yeah.
So we don't know if
Yeah.
the Lego stuff is just going to be like a collaboration within. We don't know yet, but we were ready to post so much like Lego toys and Lego collectibles and stuff. I don't know when or if that's going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
Just want to
Um,
put it out.
Which
yeah.
is too bad.
So
That would have been fun.
yeah, for sure. That going back to Warfighter's statement, um I hate to say it,
I
I
knew you
kind of
agreed
might,
with him.
yeah, yeah,
I saw your head tweet.
yeah. Now I get where you're coming from because I feel the same way. He was the inception. The problem, if this is what I've been feeling for a while, I think that it got too grand for him. If I'm being honest, I think because you think about it, he initiated it going into season 3 to season 4. By time we got to season 9 with Singularity, that I mean the it was still under the radar. It's still people weren't following the storyline really. By the time we got to chapter two, Midas, chapter two, season two, everybody was following the storyline. Where you go from there is the hard part. And to our point earlier, I think a lot of yeses and nos started happening. And I don't think it was, to your point, Dylan, I don't think it was Donald Mustard holding it back, but I do think losing control might have been the aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you, whereas like I don't think it was Donald Mustard just holding it back, like he failed or dropped the ball. I do feel that uh when more people come into the room, when more people are sitting around that meeting table, that writing room, it gets a little bit more interesting, what you can kind
Well,
of pull off,
they also have to balance it with game updates and game season
hmm
finales and the money, right?
which
Because
is
you have to do
insane.
events and stuff like
Yep.
that to bring in the money. You have to do these collaborations, which is for the money,
Yeah.
right? So like he has to then weave those into the story, even if he doesn't want to. Like they'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we have this cool contract with Marvel, or we have this cool contract with The Walking Dead, or the Frankenstein thing. Remember the monsters? They
hmm
probably threw a whole lot of money at them for that movie that was coming out to do this scene, and then it's like that he didn't want that part of the story
Yeah.
possibly, and
Yeah.
now it looks like we just didn't get any information about it. But that's because it was just a marketing ploy. So I do
Yeah.
agree that I think some stuff was marketing and money, and some stuff
Yep.
was story. And I don't think he had full control of those answers. He was a creative
Yeah.
director, but he
hmm
wasn't the one holding the purse strings.
Yeah, those things don't mix. Like I'm gonna be honest, and that's why, if I'm being real, that's why it's a writing strike right now. Those things just don't mix when it comes to, by time you get to the aspect of budget after you did the creative directing and you did the writing, when it gets to what's possible or what needs to be done to make this green and the black, it gets murky. It gets very murky. And I think we can look at the trail that Donald Mustard left from season three to season nine. Even you, matter of fact, let's take it to chapter two, season two. After that, it got a little weird. Let's be real. You seen that he was putting the characters at the forefront, the Fortnite characters at the forefront. He was building that. And then it went to, okay, we're putting this character in that's from this reality. And then it just went into overload. I think it was beneficial for them to be in the game. And the storyline is different. Now, for the comics to come out, that kind of had to be possible. But I would go on the whim and say Donald Mustard might have had even wanted to transition out of that eventually once he got his footing there and kind of got the respect of the comic book world, but it just didn't play out that way.
It could have been that, and it could have been that he thought, okay, Marvel will be cool. We can tie it in, bring it
hmm
in. One season, they're gone. But they
hmm
made a lot of money from that. And a lot of
Yeah.
people came in for the Marvel stuff. And then they're like, holy crap, this is a money machine. Let's bring in all the IPs. So that's
hmm
Well,
where
we
it
we
really
saw the
started.
pushback right away though too.
Yep.
Yeah.
When people thought we were getting a DC season
hmm
after the Marvel season, they were
Yes.
losing their
They
minds.
were losing it.
They were losing
Yeah.
it, and it ended up being hardly that. We got Aquaman, we got a few DC things, but we never got like the city of Atlantis, which had been rumored for a long
hmm
time. Remember, we got Coral Castle or whatever it
Yep.
was. It was
Yeah.
quite the
Yeah.
disappointment.
For sure.
And so, it's. I would say, when you're writing a story too, if you have an ending, that's troublesome too when you're trying to keep people going. You don't
hmm
want it to end, and so what they did for a long time is they created like a shell that could carry the story, and maybe it's gotten to the point where they're having trouble figuring out how to advance that while still carrying it forward.
Well, because
Yeah.
Fortnite's become like a marketing machine. Like I think right now, if you're like a big business, like using Fortnite to market whatever you're
Mhm.
doing is
Yep.
genius, and like they're milking, like it's a machine of marketing now. So trying to separate that's gonna be difficult.
I was
And
able to talk my boss in at the Colorado Railroad Museum into creating an account for the Colorado Railroad Museum in anticipation of doing streaming on our YouTube channel
hmm
and inviting teenagers to use creator code CRRM. Because
Yeah.
we can't engage teenagers, but we figured, well, teenagers like video game, maybe we can tell them to support us with their creator codes.
Yeah.
So we will see where things go.
I mean, and that this what's crazy is like it takes marketing to a whole new level. Let's take your train thing for example. is like you could go into Fortnite and see an actual museum of trains or an actual train that they've built and put in there. So like the possibilities are endless. So trying to do like the storyline and this whole marketing machine is gonna be hard, but I'm along for the ride, right?
And
So
yeah,
We're just seeing the start with like Nike's Air event where they were just kind of testing it out.
uh-huh.
Over time, you'll see people do more experimentation and find more successful integrations, and it's going to be cool to see where everything goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I heard radio does a lot of concerts. Like people don't even know, but like if you listen to radio, they're always pushing these different islands, and these different artists do concerts all the time
Yeah.
on these private islands that they
Um,
have.
Matter of fact, I'm glad that you brought that up. I know this might be bringing out the nerd in me, but MKBHD is a tech YouTuber, and uh a company built his whole studio in Fortnite and presented it to him. And it was so detailed that he felt that somebody was like, it was a security breach. Like, yo, did somebody get into our office and create this? That's how detailed they were able to get. And those little things like iHeartRadio, it's one of those things where the potential of Fortnite outshadows the foundation of Fortnite. And that's a scary place to be in. For us as not just collectors, but fans of the game. It's like that balancing factor may not be as possible as people think,
So
so
we
that's
I wanted Fortnite to be like the Marvel of the previous generation. Like I wanted
yeah.
this to be like I know everything about this. I know all the characters, where they came from, and grow up with it. I think that could be huge. They could do storylines, they could do movies, all that kind of stuff. But Epic Games is pushing this metaverse and this marketing machine, and there's probably way more money there, right?
Mhm.
So for us as a collectibles community, it may not be the like huge gold mine of like fun collecting that we thought we were going to get. So like series 3 ended, they stopped doing it for now, and then we
Yeah.
lost Donald Mustard. I just hope I just hope that they keep it like that. I hope they
Yeah.
keep bringing products out like that, and it's not just all about the money,
Well,
hopefully, as a
well, I
collector.
just I just had an idea here listening to you, and I'm going to put out to those who have more time and who are more talented than me. But maybe one of the ideas that they've done with a lot of their base characters is they haven't explored their background. Maybe the idea of like, oh, anybody could be this person, right? But we know the general idea. There's snapshots taken from their world or whatever else, right? Maybe that creates an opportunity for creators using Unreal 5 and everything in there. Maybe we'll see folks doing some like creating their own origin stories for these characters and like publishing them out there. Maybe if Epic doesn't take up that story torch, maybe the fans will. Like, who knows?
Now,
Well,
Rob and I have talked about this before.
yeah.
This has been in our minds before, but we won't go too
Yeah.
deep into that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
there is the possibility. This is Tim Sweeney said that it is in the works that people could eventually build their own skins in game, create their
Hmm.
own things. But he said that's very, very, very far away. I know
Yeah.
it's a little bit different than what you're saying. You're saying like writing the story for some of these characters, but the idea that people have their own maps and someday could create their own skins and then
It's
maybe
all
their own
about
stories.
integration. It's all
Yeah.
Yep.
about that integration, and again, going to the collector conversation happening on places like Vivi or Palm where they collect NFTs. Again, they're like, oh, I'm getting my VVverse house where I can look at my statues or I can read my books, and they're like, what would it look like if you could take your statue that you have and use it in a game? And it's like, dude, I already got the Predator in
Yeah.
Fortnite. Come on
Yeah.
down here and I'll kill you with John Wick.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like at some point we are going to see the like merger and the continuation, the integration of these things. And it's funny too because I look at it and I'm like, that's cool. You could put up your statue in your house, and everyone like, oh, eventually that'll be my garden. And it's like that's not really how programming works or coding
Right. Right.
or
Right. Yeah.
like to get to where you think it's going to go, like Ready Player One style. There's a lot of steps, contracts, negotiations. But the truth is, people are trying to get there, and I think like low key, like Epic is further along than anybody because they're already
Oh yeah.
working with animation, with interaction, with controls, reactivity, and stuff like that. You know.
Well, I'll add something in that I noticed a while ago that maybe y'all noticed as well. Have y'all noticed that when they come out with a major collaboration, a major one, usually that one has a style that's strictly Fortnite. So you think of the like the LeBron James style, the Neymar's, the what is the other ones? It's tons of them. It's tons of them. They have a strict Fortnite selectable style. I believe that that contract is a little bit more intricate than we think, where what we're doing is when we sign these paper, we're cementing the longevity of what we would want to do with this character in our island and our IP. And to your point, Fortnite is so much farther than everybody, where it's like they don't have to backtrack and have these conversations again. Those are cemented when
I
you drop an
suspect you're totally
island.
right.
Yeah, yeah. When you drop
I
an
think
island,
they're
there.
100% including that kind of contract language
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it sometimes where you're like, we're not going to see that skin again for a while. There's no, and then
Yeah.
boom, it pops up in the shop, and it's like there's no promotions going on. There's nothing active.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why are they doing it? Well, because they can.
Yeah.
And right. And so I imagine you're 100% right on that, and I think that you're totally right. Like with those skin styles, by creating that one that is unique to them too, that's almost like a buffer where they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you're gonna have to take it into this VVverse or whatever, you can't take this licensed
Yep.
IPP, but now you've got this, and so it's all about layers and pre-planning and time, and we're gonna see where things go, but they want to go there. They're trying to make it happen.
Yeah. And go ahead, Dylan.
No, no, you're good.
Yeah.
I was just saying we're getting close to the end, so I don't know if you guys have more you want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. I got one more thing to say. The the thing that Dylan said that was interesting, he was like, he was expecting or hoping that they'll be the Marvel of this generation. And I agree with him from the perspective that he was coming from. What I was thinking about when you said that is technically they are. It's just not gonna look the way we think it is. It's kind of what there was
The way I hoped
was-
it would.
yeah,
Yeah.
because and the reason why I say that is because the before Marvel and DC, that era of comics, uh, there was nothing like that, like to that
Mhm.
level, to that scale, where you there's superheroes and villains that we've never seen in those IPs. And Fortnite,
I think we looked it up before, and I
yeah,
think you guys would be surprised. I don't know if akaBoG knows how
yeah,
many characters Marvel has.
yeah,
I know that the Spider-Man Sony contract covers 900 plus characters.
yeah,
So
yeah.
It's
It's
way worse than that. There's over 80,000 Marvel characters.
mm-hmm,
So we
mm-hmm.
were talking about like how like Fortnite has like crazy amounts of characters, but they haven't touched it. There's like
We're like at 1600,
now, so that just tells you how many characters failed or that you don't know about, or they
yeah,
were just super small.
yeah,
So,
yes, but that's good.
all right, guys. I want to thank akaBoG for hopping on with us. This was a super fun
Yeah,
episode. He will be back, whether he
yes,
wants
for
to or
sure.
not.
anytime,
Um,
anytime.
especially when the
Yes.
new comics come out.
Hmm.
Hopefully in January the comics will come out. We'd love to have you on to talk about them. Maybe we
Hmm.
can get you live right when the first one comes out, so we can talk about it fresh.
I'll let you
Yeah,
know as soon as I hear anything. So
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Please go follow akaBoG,
Yes.
subscribe to him,
Subscribe.
so you can get it straight from the source, and please subscribe to us as well. We're still trying to hit that 1,000 so we can do custom matches.
Yep.
Besides that, FortniteCars.com for any Fortnite content, and we will catch you guys next week.
Have a good one, y'all.
thanks for tuning, guys. Later.